Most people who are losing intelligence have no idea it's happening. Not because it shows up in obvious ways. Bad grades, bad decisions, public embarrassment. No. It shows up in the tiny habits you don't even notice. The invisible behaviors you repeat every day, the ones that quietly rewire your brain downward. And here's the part nobody is prepared for. You can look smart, sound smart, function like a normal adult, and still be unintentionally training yourself to get dumber. Today, I'm going to show you 7 everyday habits that silently erode your cognitive ability and the radically different habits intelligent people use instead. And we're starting with the one that's damaging your brain every single night, without you feeling it. You think staying up late is harmless. One more scroll, one more video. You'll catch up on sleep later. You won't, and your brain pays immediately. Here's what actually happens when you cut your sleep. The hippocampus can't lock in new memories, so most of what you learned simply evaporates. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that handles logic, focus, and self-control, powers down. You're awake, but mentally impaired. The craziest part is that after a few nights of poor sleep, you stop noticing how impaired you are. The fog feels normal. You assume this is just how you are now. It's not. You've just adapted to dysfunction. People who sabotage their intelligence treat sleep as optional, something to squeeze in after entertainment, distractions, and late-night dopamine. People who protect their intelligence treat sleep as the foundation of every cognitive ability they have. Not out of discipline, but out of understanding. Every night you short your sleep, you're training your brain to work worse tomorrow. You can't outthink sleep deprivation. You can't push through it. When you operate on too little sleep, you're basically using a downgraded version of your own brain. And the morning fog you brush off, that doesn't just go away, it becomes your new normal. You laugh at crystals, Lucky Charms, and astrology addicts, but you probably engage in your own version of magical thinking, just with better packaging. You watch success stories at 2 a.m. and convince yourself that inspiration counts as progress. You read about discipline instead of practicing it. This is the illusion of control, the belief that intention equals movement, that feeling motivated is the same as doing something meaningful. It's not. It's psychological comfort disguised as self-improvement. Low intelligence behavior clings to fantasies. It prefers vibes over mechanisms, hope over process, and positivity over cause and effect. High intelligence behavior is mechanical. It ignores rituals and focuses on actions that produce predictable outcomes. No manifesting, no cosmic negotiations, just behavior, feedback, adjustment. Every time you replace action with a comforting ritual, you teach your brain that feelings matter more than results. And once your brain learns that, it becomes harder to tell the difference between what you want to be true and what actually is true. That isn't optimism. It's self-delusion with a productivity aesthetic. Most people aren't afraid of silence because it's quiet. They're afraid of silence because it exposes them to their own thoughts. So they fill every spare second with noise. Music on the commute, podcasts while cooking, TikTok in bed, screens everywhere, all the time. It feels like connection, but it's really avoidance. Here's the psychological reality. The ability to sit alone with your thoughts is one of the clearest markers of emotional regulation and genuine self-awareness. If you can't handle solitude, it usually means you've never built an inner voice strong enough to guide you. When you fill every gap with stimulation, your mind never processes anything. You absorb information, but you never integrate it. Your feelings pile up with nowhere to go. Your ideas stay half-formed. Your priorities stay blurry. Low intelligence behavior panics in silence. It depends on constant input to avoid confronting confusion, boredom, or anxiety. High intelligence behavior seeks solitude because that's where thinking actually happens. It's where ideas connect, assumptions get questioned, and clarity takes shape. Even 10 quiet minutes a day forces your brain to organize itself. When you avoid solitude, you stay in permanent input mode. No reflection, no consolidation, no synthesis. You become a storage device full of files you've never opened. Your mind gets loud, but not deep. Most daily conversations never leave the surface. Weather, weekend plans, shows everyone's watched. Safe topics that require no thought and reveal nothing real. And you match that level, not because you want to, but because deeper conversations feel risky. Depth exposes whether you've actually thought about anything. It reveals gaps in your reasoning, uncertainty in your beliefs, or the fact that you've been operating on autopilot. So you stay shallow. It feels polite, but it's really avoidance. Shallow conversation is a psychological shield. It keeps you from being challenged, questioned, or forced to explain why you believe what you believe. You never have to defend an idea, refine a thought, or confront the possibility that you might be wrong. Low intelligence behavior lives in this zone. Lots of opinions, almost no understanding. They can react, gossip, and comment, but when asked to explain their reasoning, they collapse. They've never examined their own thoughts long enough to form a coherent viewpoint. High intelligence behavior seeks depth, not arguments, depth. They ask real questions. They want to understand mechanisms, motivations, causes. They're willing to be wrong because being wrong teaches them more than being comfortable. Your conversations shape your mind. If you stay in environments where everything stays light, your thinking becomes light. If no one ever pushes back, your ideas stay soft. If nothing requires clarity, you never develop it. Without friction, your thoughts never sharpen. They just float around, vague, untested, and easily replaced by the next thing you hear. You form a belief. It feels right, and then you defend it long after reality has stopped supporting it. That's cognitive rigidity, choosing the comfort of being consistent over the discomfort of being accurate. Watch how most people react when they're proven wrong. They don't update. They justify. They dismiss. They twist the new information until it fits the story they already believe. The goal isn't truth. It's protecting their ego. Low intelligence behavior locks onto a worldview early in life and never revises it. Everything that confirms it gets amplified. Everything that contradicts it gets rejected. They're not learning, just reinforcing. Ask them to explain the strongest version of a viewpoint they disagree with, and they can't. They've never actually studied the other side. They've only fought it. High intelligence behavior is flexible. They treat beliefs like working drafts, not sacred truths. When new information shows up, they adjust. Being wrong doesn't threaten them, because being wrong is part of getting smarter. Rigidity shrinks your mental world. Every belief you refuse to update makes your model of reality less accurate. You start making decisions based on outdated assumptions, ignoring opportunities that don't match your script, and resenting anything that forces you to adapt. Reality keeps changing. Rigid thinkers don't. And life punishes that mismatch. The intelligent aren't attached to being right. They're attached to getting things right. That distinction is everything. You see something, feel something, want something, and you act instantly. No pause, no consideration, no space between the impulse and the reaction. It feels spontaneous, but it's actually a loss of control. Impulsivity is what happens when the urge becomes louder than the part of your brain meant to regulate it. Children act on every impulse because their prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed yet. Adults are supposed to have a built-in pause button. When you don't use it, it weakens. Low intelligence behavior obeys impulses automatically. Hungry? Eat whatever's closest. Annoyed? Fire off a message. Bored? Scroll for an hour. Every reaction reinforces the same pattern. Feel, act. The more you repeat it, the faster that pathway gets. Soon, your entire life becomes a series of reflexes instead of decisions. High intelligence behavior installs the pause. They still feel urges, but they insert a moment of awareness before acting. Is this what I want long term, or just what I want right now? Will this matter tomorrow? Does this move me closer or further? That tiny moment is where self-control lives. Chronic impulsivity makes you predictable. Algorithms can push your buttons. Other people can trigger you. Your environment ends up steering your life more than your intentions do. Once you lose the pause, you lose direction. You aren't choosing anymore. You're just reacting to whatever stimulus hits you next. You spend hours consuming content. Videos, articles, posts, memes, feeling like you're learning, improving, or staying informed. But nothing sticks, nothing changes, and nothing turns into action. That's passive consumption, the illusion of productivity without any of the benefits. Your brain can process endless input, but without output, none of it becomes understanding. You take in ideas, but never test them, use them, or connect them to anything meaningful. It's mental clutter disguised as growth. Low intelligence behavior stays stuck in this loop. They watch breakdowns, but never break anything down themselves. They study success, but never attempt anything that risks failure. They mistake exposure for competence and information for insight. High intelligence behavior consumes with intention. They read, watch, or listen, but then they do something with it. They write, reflect, talk, apply, or create. Output forces clarity. It turns a concept into a tool. When you only consume, your brain never closes the loop. The information floats around as disconnected fragments, making you feel informed, but leaving you unable to explain or use any of it. The result, you know a little about everything and understand almost nothing deeply. Without output, your mind becomes an echo chamber of other people's thoughts, endlessly recycled, but never transformed into anything original or valuable. This isn't about being born smart or gifted. It's about what you repeatedly train your brain to do. Intelligence isn't a fixed trait. It's a direction. Every habit you practice either sharpens your mind or dulls it. Sleep neglect trains your brain to operate beneath its potential. Magical thinking trains you to replace action with fantasy. Avoiding solitude trains you to drown out the thoughts you need to confront. Shallow conversations train your mind to avoid depth and clarity. Cognitive rigidity trains you to defend old beliefs instead of learning new ones. Impulsivity trains you to obey urges instead of shaping outcomes. Passive consumption trains you to absorb endlessly and produce nothing. None of these habits stay small. Repeated daily, they reshape your brain's wiring. Neurons that fire together wire together, and the behaviors you normalize become the default version of you. But the opposite is just as true. Protecting your sleep strengthens memory and reasoning. Solitude deepens your thinking. Depth in conversation sharpens your ideas. Flexibility keeps you accurate. The pause builds control. Creation builds understanding. You are never neutral. You are always training something. The question isn't whether you're intelligent right now. The question is whether your daily habits are building the mind you want or eroding the one you have. You now know the habits that quietly drain your intelligence, not the dramatic failures people imagine, but the subtle choices that compound into a weaker mind over time. And here's the part most people ignore. Knowing this changes nothing. Awareness without action is just another form of passive consumption. You have two paths. You can close this video, feel a brief spark of motivation, and slide right back into the same patterns. Late nights, noise, avoidance, reactivity, endless scrolling, the same slow decline disguised as normal life. Or you can pick one habit, just one, and change it today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. Turn your phone off an hour before bed. Sit in silence for 10 minutes. Ask a real question in your next conversation. Pause before your next impulse. Create something instead of consuming. Small actions are not symbolic. They're structural. They begin rewiring your brain upward instead of downward. You won't stumble into intelligence. You won't drift into depth. You won't accidentally become the person you admire. It happens through deliberate choices repeated until they become who you are. If you want to keep growing, if you want the mechanisms, not motivational fluff, subscribe, because the next videos go deeper into the psychology of building a sharper mind, one habit at a time. The choice is simple: build or decay, and now you know which direction you've been training.